flew across the room like shrapnel, over 150 degrees, and set them on a wet granite countertop. Every single one exploded. Glass shards flew across the room like shrapnel. Over the following years, the Consumer Product Safety Commission logged more than 850 reports of Pyrex dishes violently shattering in American kitchens. An estimated 12,000 people ended up in emergency rooms over a single decade. And yet, there has never been a recall. Not one. We are going to expose the engineering change that turned America's most trusted baking dish into a ticking time bomb, explain the science behind why it happens, and show you the only 3 ways to get glassware that actually works the way Pyrex was supposed to. If you open the cabinet in almost any American kitchen, you will probably find a Pyrex dish. The brand has been a household staple for over a century, present in roughly 80% of American homes. Your grandmother had one, your mother had one, and you probably assume the dish sitting in your cabinet right now is the same product they trusted with every Thanksgiving turkey and Sunday casserole. That is an illusion. The Pyrex in your grandmother's kitchen was made from a special type of glass called borosilicate. It was originally developed in 1913 at the Corning Glass Works factory in Corning, New York. A physicist named Jesse Littleton brought home 2 sawed-off glass battery jars to his wife Bessie, whose ceramic casserole had just cracked after only 2 uses. Bessie baked a sponge cake in the glass, and it worked perfectly. It cooked faster, baked more evenly, and released cleanly. She kept testing recipes and recording results, effectively running Corning's first test kitchen from her own home. By 1915, Corning launched Pyrex commercially with 12 products, and within a decade, it had revolutionized the American kitchen. The key was the borosilicate formula. This glass contains about 13% boron trioxide, which makes it nearly immune to sudden temperature changes. You could take it from a 400-degree oven and set it on a cold counter without a second thought. But at some point between the 1940s and 1998, the company quietly changed the recipe, and the consequences of that change are still injuring people today. To understand why modern Pyrex explodes, you need to understand what thermal shock actually does to glass. When you heat one side of a piece of glass, that side expands. If the other side is still cold, it resists the expansion. This creates internal stress. If the stress exceeds the strength of the glass, it fractures. The physics comes down to a single number called the coefficient of thermal expansion. It measures how much the glass grows per degree of temperature change. Original borosilicate Pyrex has a coefficient of 3.3. The soda lime glass that replaced it sits between 8.6 and 9.5. That is nearly 3 times higher. Triple the expansion means triple the internal stress for the exact same temperature swing. In real-world terms, borosilicate glass tolerates a temperature difference of about 330 degrees Fahrenheit before it cracks. Soda lime glass fails at roughly 100 degrees. Think about what that means in your kitchen. Boiling water is 212 degrees. Simply pouring boiling water into a cold soda lime measuring cup can exceed the glass's breaking point. Pulling a hot casserole dish out of the oven and setting it on a damp granite counter, which every cook in America does instinctively, can generate more than enough stress to shatter it instantly. Even resting a hot dish on a stovetop burner with a small puddle of spilled water can trigger a catastrophic failure. These are not edge cases. These are Tuesday night dinner scenarios. And the company that makes this product has known about these numbers for over a decade. In 2012, researchers Richard Brate and Richard Martins published a landmark study in the American Ceramic Society Bulletin, and their conclusion was devastating. They wrote that the margin of safety for soda lime cookware is borderline, and that it does not appear to be adequate for all household cooking. A peer-reviewed paper in one of the most respected materials, science journals in the world, said the product is not safe enough for the way normal people actually cook. But the glass formula is only half the problem. The way this new glass fails makes it exponentially more dangerous than a simple crack. When manufacturers make soda lime glass cookware, they temper it. Tempering creates a compressed outer surface and a tensile inner core, essentially storing enormous internal energy inside the glass, like an inflated balloon waiting to pop. When old borosilicate glass breaks, it cracks into a few large pieces that mostly stay in place. You can pick them up safely. But when tempered soda lime glass fails, All that stored energy releases at once. The glass does not crack, it detonates. It sends thousands of fragments flying several feet in every direction. Consumers describe it the same way every time. A woman named Vicki McCalman in Denton County, Texas, said it was like a bomb went off in the oven. A 29-year-old man named James Sinton in Houston needed stitches after a measuring cup became instant shrapnel when he poured boiling water for tea. On Thanksgiving Day, a woman named Patricia Sechenya opened her oven to baste a ham, and the Pyrex dish exploded, burning her, her daughter, and her granddaughter. A child cut her foot on the glass scattered across the kitchen floor. And perhaps the most disturbing finding from the Bratt and Martin study was that the dishes they tested showed minimal evidence of actual thermal strengthening. The glass was not even failing the way tempered glass is supposed to. Instead of crumbling into small, harmless cubes, it was fracturing into long, sharp, dagger-like shards. The manufacturer knew about these incidents for years. NBC ran on-air demonstrations where a glass expert named Mark Meshulam heated both types side by side. The American soda lime dish instantly blew apart, sending pieces across the studio. The European borosilicate dish cracked into about 3 pieces. Meshulam called the result pretty sobering. Senator Richard Durbin of Illinois wrote directly to the Safety Commission, warning that because the product sits in 80% of American homes, defects could compromise the safety of a significant number of consumers. The agency never responded to his letter, and the company's response was not to fix the product. It was to sue the scientists. In November of 2012, World Kitchen, the company that owned Pyrex at the time, filed a federal lawsuit against the American Ceramic Society and the 2 researchers who published the study. They accused the scientists of running a sensational campaign of disparagement and wanted the research suppressed. After a full bench trial, Judge John Dara ruled decisively against World Kitchen. He found that nothing in the paper was false. The company appealed, then quietly dismissed its own appeal in 2017. But here is where the story turns from a product defect into a corporate playbook. The manufacturer did not just attack the scientists. They ran the same deflection strategy on every consumer who complained. When a woman named Tricia Fullerton contacted the company after her dish shattered in her hand, she was told that glassware should always be placed on a dry cloth when removed from the oven. When a spokesman was asked about the hundreds of complaints, he said the company cannot speculate on how someone was using their bakeware. When pressed on the numbers, corporate representatives claimed that less than 1/10 of 1% of products experience thermal breakage. That sounds reassuring until you learn that their Charleroi, Pennsylvania factory was producing between 48 and 52 million pieces per year. 1/10 of 1% of 50 million is 50,000 potential incidents every single year. And to make matters worse, a senior vice president publicly stated that any suggestion the company changed Corning's formula was simply false. That claim is technically defensible because Corning itself began the transition decades earlier. But it is deeply misleading because it implies the glass you are cooking with today is the same glass your family trusted for generations. It is not. The ownership trail tells you exactly how a trusted product gets hollowed out. Corning sold its consumer division to a subsidiary of KKR for $975 million in 1998. Within 4 years, the new company filed for bankruptcy. It was later acquired by Cornell Capital, merged with Instant Brands, and in 2021, the private equity owners extracted a $345 million dividend that a bankruptcy trustee later called fatally flawed. In June of 2023, Instant Brands filed for Chapter 11. By 2025, the new owners permanently closed the Charleroi factory, where Pyrex had been poured for nearly 90 years. 270 workers lost their jobs, and the town that gave birth to this product no longer makes it. So, if the product on store shelves is fundamentally compromised, does that mean you should throw away every glass dish in your kitchen? No. But it means you need to stop shopping by brand name and start shopping by material. You need to stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a materials engineer. There are 3 ways to get glass bakeware that handles temperature, changes the way Pyrex was originally designed to. First, look for vintage Pyrex made before the mid-1980s. The easiest identifier is the logo. Older pieces stamp Pyrex in all capital letters. Newer pieces use lowercase. But there is a better test. Hold the glass up and look at it edge on. Soda lime glass has a noticeable greenish-blue tint. Borosilicate glass is perfectly clear. There is even a science experiment you can do at home. Borosilicate has a refractive index that matches mineral oil, so if you submerge a piece in mineral oil and it nearly disappears, you are holding the real thing. Vintage Pyrex has become a serious collector market, with the rarest patterns selling for thousands of dollars. But everyday clear baking dishes, pie plates, and measuring cups are still affordable at thrift stores, estate sales, and online. Do not pay collector prices for common pieces. You are shopping for the material, not the pattern. Second, buy European Pyrex. Here is the detail that should make every American consumer furious. Across the Atlantic, in a factory in Châteauroux, France, a company called International Cookware still manufactures Pyrex from borosilicate glass, the exact same type of glass that made the brand famous over 100 years ago. Independent testing showed the French version withstands temperature swings of 238 degrees Celsius. The American version failed at 172. That means the European glass handles nearly 40% more thermal stress before it breaks. You can order European Pyrex through Amazon, through specialty importers like icedteapitcher.com, or directly from European retailers. Alternative brands like Cymax from the Czech Republic and OXO Good Grips also sell borosilicate bakeware that ships to the United States. You will pay slightly more, but you are buying a product that will not detonate on your countertop. And the third option is the one that tells you everything you need to know about this entire story. Look at what Corning itself still makes. Corning, the company that invented Pyrex in 1915, still manufactures borosilicate glass under the Pyrex trademark today. They sell beakers, flasks, and test tubes to laboratories and research institutions around the world. They even have a page on their own website titled Pyrex versus Pyrex, What is the Difference?, where they openly explain the distinction between their laboratory borosilicate and the consumer soda lime product. In a laboratory, where a cracked beaker could ruin an experiment or injure a chemist, they use the original formula. In your kitchen, where a dish can shatter and send glass into your child's foot while you are cooking dinner, they decided that cheaper glass was good enough. That is not a conspiracy theory. It is right there on their own website. The Pyrex story is not just about a baking dish. It is about what happens when a 100-year-old brand becomes a financial instrument, passed from one private equity firm to the next, with each owner extracting hundreds of millions of dollars while the product quietly degrades. The science is unambiguous. The manufacturer sued the scientists who proved it and lost. Federal regulators documented thousands of injuries and never issued a recall. And right now, millions of Americans are pulling a dish out of the oven with the same confidence their families have had for a century, never knowing the glass inside has fundamentally changed. Check the logo, check the glass color, and never assume that a famous name on the box still means what it meant 50 years ago. If you found this eye-opening, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next investigation into the products corporate America does not want you to understand.